Do you get the feeling that something big is coming? Because I sure as hell do. In the last 25 years, we've already lived through two what I will describe as massive society altering events. First, we had the 9/11 attacks, that was in 2001, and they ushered in the biggest expansion of the surveillance state in Western history. Then came the COVID insanity in 2020, and that was 2+ years of lockdowns, fear, and control, and they still echo today in 2026. And now I believe that we are being primed for another major event. I'm not going to put a date on it though, but I do think the signs are all there. And before I tell you what I see coming, I want to talk about something that a lot of people refer to as predictive programming. And this is the idea that Hollywood doesn't just reflect society, that it helps condition it. This idea that ideas are planted years in advance so that when certain events happen, the public has already been primed, softened up, and are more likely to accept them. Basically, it's fiction first, reality later. In 1994, Arnold, fought radical Islamic terrorists in the film True Lies. In 1996, we had Executive Decision, and that showed Islamic terrorists hijacking a 747 plane and planning to crash it into Washington, D.C. In 1998, Denzel Washington starred in a movie called The Siege that involved Islamic terror attacks in New York City, which were followed by heavy handed government response. And who can forget Back to the Future with Libyan terrorists gunning down Doc Brown right at the start of the movie? The same pattern appeared with COVID. We had movies like Contagion, Outbreak, or you can go all the way back to 1971 and the Andromeda strain, showing us deadly pathogens, mass panic, authoritarian response. And some believe these films prepared the public to accept things like lockdowns and major restrictions on freedom, all in the name of public health. And I will acknowledge, of course, not everyone buys into this because Hollywood makes thousands of movies, and a broken clock is right twice a day, after all. I mean, we've had dinosaur movies for decades, but we haven't had any dinosaurs showing up, at least not yet. So it is a fair point. But then there's another movie called White Noise that a lot of people aren't familiar with. It was filmed in Ohio back in 2021, and it used locals from the town of East Palestine, Ohio, as extras. And the movie featured a train derailment which caused a toxic chemical spill and a mass evacuation. So it was filmed in 2021. It was released late in 2022. And then in February of 2023, just a few months later, real life copied that script almost exactly. A train derailment, vinyl chlorides being spilled. And then they had a controlled burn, and they had a controlled burn that sent a toxic plume up over the town. So the people who acted in this movie and then watched it at the theater or on TV, then they got to live it for real. And even that title, White Noise. White noise is that background sound you barely notice. And that is exactly how predictive programming is supposed to work. So, what is this something big that I see coming? I believe it involves aliens or what are being framed as interdimensional beings. In just over a month, Steven Spielberg's new film, it's called Disclosure Day, will be hitting theaters. And it's not just Hollywood talking about this. There have been US congressional hearings on what they call now UAPs. Used to be UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Now it's UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And then we have, the Hadron Collider, the CERN Collider, where they're smashing atoms against each other and discovering the Higgs boson being deemed the God particle. And we have this explosion in public interest about quantum physics, metaphysics. And my expectation is that we will be given a new origin story for life on Earth. And it's going to be one that involves interdimensional beings. And I approach this from a biblical perspective, and I see this as ultimately demonic. We were warned 2,000 years ago by Christ that the time before his return would be like, quote, birth pangs, basically contractions that increase in frequency and intensity. I mean, we're already seeing wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes, global rising global tension. I mean, right now, 2026, May 2026, we have roughly, well, over 1 billion people are living in countries that are either at war or under serious threat of war. We've got Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, the United States, much of the broader Middle East, and 1 billion people that's massive. And the big question is, how will people react if I'm right? And I'm not the only one. When disclosure happens, when we're told that non human intelligent beings exist, possibly from other planets or other dimensions. And history shows that the most common reaction to the unknown is fear. We saw it after 9/11. We saw it during COVID. And fear makes people willing, it conditions you to be willing to trade freedom for the illusion of safety. Now, in the Bible, it tells us 365 times that we are to fear not. And it's not a suggestion. I would argue it is a command because fear robs an individual of their ability for critical thinking. And when you abide in Christ, you're putting on the full armor of God. And that is armor that protects you from being swept away by fear and making bad and sometimes disastrous decisions. So I've said my piece. Now I would like to hear from you. Do you believe that a real disclosure event is coming? And how do you see it playing out? And most importantly, how will you respond if it does? I'll ask you to drop your thoughts down in the comment field. And I want you to know I do read all the comments and I do reply to as many as I can. Take care. God bless. You've been watching Act One, a Canadian take on news events. I'm Gordy Canuck. If you like the content, you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, all that usual YouTube boilerplate stuff. Again, thank you, and I do hope to see you back. Take care.